East Grand Bahama's environmental vulnerability. East Grand Bahama's environmental vulnerability is clear, and it's been made even more obvious as a result of Hurricane Dorian. Now, a 3-year project called the IWECO project is expected to give some strong support to the area and to its residents. My special guests are Rochelle Newbold, who is the director of the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection and is the national focal point person of the IWECO project. Joining her is Melissa Ingraham, who's the project manager. We also have Dr. Vic Nair, the Dean of Graduate Studies and Research at the University of the Bahamas, who's a consultant to the project. Welcome to the Reid Factor.
Good morning.
Great.
Good morning. Thank you for having us on the show today.
Good for you to be here. Let us talk about the IWECO project. First, what does it stand for? Dr. Go ahead, Ms. Newbold. Yeah.
The IWECO project is an acronym for Integrated Water and Ecosystem Management Project. That project was originally, in your introduction, you talked about the devastation in Grand Bahama and what's going on in Eastern Grand Bahama. But prophetic as it may have been, this project was something that was started back in 2016, 2014, with the planning and the preparation for a design of a project that would be able to help encourage a more diversified economy, utilizing or a focus on the environment for the Grand Bahama populace. So if we fast forward from the original design of the project, which was part of a regional undertaking, because the IWECO project is something that's happening in the Caribbean at large, and each Caribbean country was tasked with identifying some sort of integrated water and ecosystem project for its own national needs. East and Grand Bahama was selected as the area for which such an undertaking would be done for the Bahamas. So through that, the IWECO project was designed way back then. Then Hurricane Dorian happened. And what we have now found is that there has to be some level of adjustment, some changes, some tweaking now, because of what was designed for and what is presently happening now. While substantively it hasn't been major shifts, but there is going on now some small tweaking to make sure that the project can actually meet the needs of what is happening in Grand Bahama at this time. But it is a project that's looking at the holistic environment and how that environment can be utilized in a sustainable way to be an economic driver for the communities in East End.
Now, what makes East Grand Bahama in particular so vulnerable?
Well, the project wasn't necessarily designed because of vulnerability, but more so about the opportunities that exist. There are parts of the Bahamas where we know it still remains in what we consider in the minds of Bahamian in a pristine state. Like we talk about Andros being the sleeping giant. And then the further south we go, we always look at those islands as being more in keeping with a close affinity to nature. Eastern Grand Bahama, Grand Bahama in general, we tend to write off somewhat as the industrial, the developed part of the Bahamas. But there are components of Eastern Grand Bahama that are still, or that are particularly mirrored to that of our southern islands, that of Andros. And what we were trying to do with the design of the project initially was to show that our environment does not necessarily need to be left alone in order for it to be a contributing factor in human development, but it could be used in the ecosystem benefits that it presently generate, that can be harnessed to be utilized by the residents to benefit them in the long run. Eastern Grand Bahama is still in close proximity to its physical environment. The people that live there are still living off the land, but they can yield a stronger, more beneficial financial benefit from it if we just use it, not necessarily focusing on, say, big hotels or big cruise ship or things that tend to want to mold the land, mold the environment to yield something that it was not doing naturally. So this project was to look at what it's already contributing and how can we use that to enhance the economic drivers within that sector of the island.
University of the Bahamas get involved?
The University of the Bahamas is involved. We are assisting in this project in terms of in three areas. I'm looking at the tourism component, and then we also have the legal consultant that is assisting in the project, and we also have the communication consultant to make sure that all awareness that is created from this project is well managed across all the stakeholders and across the community. So I think it's key for us, especially when we talk about the human component, which is what I'm very much focusing on in trying to develop the ecotourism production sector within East Grand Bahama. Because as you may be aware, East Grand Bahama is rich as far as ecotourism is concerned. So what is critical for us post-Dorian is to ensure that the community have the capacity to actually manage a good ecotourism product and services. So that is the main role that we are trying to do currently in trying to develop within the boundaries of the project. So this project have a lot of potential in terms of helping the local community, because when you talk about ecotourism, it's not just about nature. You're also talking about the community. How do we bring the community closer? How do we ensure that the community is well prepared to manage, to right from developing their product to sustaining their product? How can they sustain? So that is key. We are also introducing an international benchmark in terms of ecotourism certification to ensure that an international approach is used in trying to develop this product and measure them, because if you don't measure them, you will never know where they are and what more that they need to do. So this is something critical, and we are glad that the University of the Bahamas is part of this important project.
Good. Well, you went a little bit ahead of me when you brought in the ecotourism aspect, which is what, of course, we definitely have to highlight because that's what it is. But explain, I mean, Bahamians know the term, and I think we have a basic idea. But if you could even expand a little bit more about the community aspect that you were referring to just now.
Okay. See, there's always a confusion when you talk about ecotourism versus nature-based tourism. Most people think it's the same. So there is a difference. If you look at nature-based tourism, it is very much activities that you carry out in natural setting. But when you use the word ecotourism, there is education, there is awareness, there is conservation, there's involvement of local community. So when you use the term ecotourism, which is what our focus is, you are actually bringing close, you're bringing the community together, you're going to help the community to move to the next level. So ecotourism is key because you're not just educating the community, you're also going to educate the visitors coming to the destination. So at the end of the day, there is a win-win for the community, there's a win-win for the tourist that is coming, because ecotourism destination can be challenging for certain type of tourists. You may have hardcore eco-tourists, and you may have the soft eco-tourist who's traveling with family. So you need to have a balanced activities to ensure that this group of tourists or visitors coming is going to benefit. At the same time, what is key for us in the Bahamas is the local community. How can the local community involve right from day one, which is what we are doing now. We're talking to the resident, we're talking to the community, we're talking to the various stakeholders to ensure that what we're proposing is something that is workable, that we are involving the communities, we're getting the input from the communities before we roll out the ecotourism plan.
Well, Grand Bahama is in need of a lot of support. We all know that. And we understand that cruise ships are supposed to be coming. You need to have a day experience. This seems like the perfect thing for it, because everyone knows that if you're in Grand Bahama and in the Freeport area, it's quite a bit of a trek out to the east, but still a wonderful experience just to see generally. What specific communities and natural habitats are expected to be part of this project? If we can hear from you, Ms. Newbold, and Ms. Ingram, please.
So as it relates to the specific habitats that will be targeted by this project, we will be focusing largely on creeks, wetland areas to be restored. And those habitats do include mangrove forests as well as pine forests, which are very significant to the Bahamas as it relates to native species being here and the ecosystem functions that they bring. As it relates to the communities, like we said, this is the project targeting East Grand Bahama, so the Eastern Keys more so, including August Key, Sweetings Key, McLeanstown, et cetera, providing opportunities for these residents to be part of the development and implementation of the project with us so that we ensure that we have, the opinions and incorporation of what the residents want, also for what benefits them.
Now, you said you've been engaging the community. What steps have you taken to do that? How have you been engaging them? Which different methods are you using?
Well, there are several tiers of engagement here, and I know that Dr. Nair can speak to the surveys that are being undertaken through the University of the Bahamas.
Yes, we have actually carried out 2 surveys since early this year. The first survey is talking to the resident in terms of their attitude, trying to understand their attitude and perspective on ecotourism development. So we had a series of questions that is asked when we talk about trying to understand the ecotourism dimension. So when you talk about the ecotourism dimension, it looks at every aspect of ecotourism development. So what is key is whether the residents is going to support, because it's pointless for us to come up with a program that is going to be totally against what the resident wants. So what was interesting when we carried out this study is we got a lot of positive response that has come out from the residents. The residents are very supportive in terms of what we are trying to do, and they are very appreciative that we are actually approaching the community to get their feedback. So when we talk about all the different components of ecotourism development, they are very supportive and they need assistance. So that is good. So the positive part of it. The other aspect of it is they are very cautious of the mass development that is taking place. So they are a bit more worried, is mass tourism going to destroy this place? So that is a worry that they have voiced out. So meaning it is very important how we do the planning. How do we manage the carrying capacity of this destination based on the infrastructure that is already in place? At the same time, they are also wary of people who are not from Grand Bahama coming in to develop this place. So that is another hesitant that they have actually provided in the survey. And then we also had a second survey, which is ongoing currently in trying to understand their perception on the whole management of the watershed. So we have another consultant that is looking at it currently. So we have not analyzed the data for that, but these 2 surveys is important because it tackles straight to the local community, the residents over there, and what is important to them. But in addition to this, I'm sure Director Newbold can talk about all the other workshops that is in progress currently in trying to get feedback from the other stakeholders across Grand Bahama, and also who are based here but who have their input in terms of how should we actually manage East Grand Bahama post-Dorian, and how do we ensure that things remain stable in the years to come.
Now, Dr. Newbold, we recently saw the passing of ABS legislation. How critical is that to a project like this?
Very much so. I mean, the conservation and protection of our biological resources and our traditional knowledge, that act is very important to the Bahamas and to the people of the Bahamas specifically, because it speaks to what has been entrusted to us. On these 700 islands and keys, there are some unique issues, some unique plants, some unique animals, some endemic things that are only found here in the Bahamas. And for better or worse, sometimes we lock them all in one group. We tend to treat the environment as one bush or one swamp. And I think that mentality is changing over time. but it's not a process that happens overnight. That act ensures that we do not find ourselves in a situation where others would come in, see the value of what we have, go ahead and purchase that land with all the money that they have, and then come back and use it for their benefit alone, thereby closing out the Bahamas and the people of the Bahamas in general. So under the ABS, what we term the ABS Act in short, is the fundamental requirement that anybody coming into this country, be it good intentions or not, anybody coming into this country must register themselves as a person coming in seeking to undertake for research, for education, for bioprospecting, whatever it is, such that the government of the Bahamas has an understanding of who is here and what they're doing and what is the intended objective. And should that individual find or hit upon a discovery that is able to be commercialized, that we are not left out in the cold as has happened in the past. We will now be, by virtue of that act, have a legal right, a legal stake in engaging that individual or that company or organization directly.
So
with regards to how, sorry?
Go ahead.
As to how we as a nation can benefit from a finding that was made, a discovery that was made within our borders, under our sovereign area. That is the importance of that act. And what it also tells us is that pharmaceutical companies, big drug companies, I mean, medicine in general, discoveries are based on people taking knowledge that may be known traditionally, because, you know, when we say boil these two bushes and you deal with that issue, or by fact that they observe what is going on in a natural environment and then they investigate the chemical or genetic compounds behind that, and then they find out that there's some benefit to man. Those are things that are still yet are untouched within our borders. And we as a people need to be better managers of it. Dr. Nair talked about the fact that getting the data, getting the information, that's an important part of ensuring the success of this project. And the same holds true for the biological resources that we manage. He talked about in the survey how people are concerned about any mass development, anything that comes in and modifies the environment from what it is. That's important to us because when we start stripping the land and cutting down and clearing, we are removing things that are naturally occurring there without any knowledge or any concern that there may be something here that can benefit mankind in general, but the Bahamas specifically. And so to be able to control and to have information that allows us to make proper managerial decisions is very important. How are we involving the communities was your question. And yes, we are definitely seeking to ensure that the Grand Bahamians are the key leaders in what happens in Grand Bahamas. And so with that, Ms. Ingram can speak to the level of training and workshops that are going to be a part of this project, where we are really desirous of getting Grand Bahamians on board, making sure that they, even though this project may be hubbed in New Providence, that what goes on in Grand Bahama is really driven by those who are there.
And we're going to get to that in a minute, but I just wanted to point out that since it is so big in the public domain, this whole issue of natural resources, really, ABS is what that is doing. It's supporting that in a big way. Isn't that really what it is?
Yeah, it is, because we are living on an island, and the one thing that doesn't increase on the island is land mass, right? Your flora and your fauna continuously shrinking, being modified, shifted, destroyed, because one, your populations in numbers are gonna increase. One, we're gonna forever be fraught with hurricanes. Two, we're gonna lose our land masses because as we seek to deal with the issues of the population numbers, everybody wants their own home. Everybody wants their own piece of land. There is only so much that we have in this country. So we really have to understand what is there. How is it contributing to the well-being of the populace at large? And how can we benefit if we allow others to utilize it in the various and varied ways that exist, be it pharmaceutical, be it cosmetics, be it for the food industry. There is a lot. There is a lot.
Now we have to take a break right now. We're going to come back to you, Ms. Ingram, after the break, and of course to you, Dr. Nair, with some more questions and some other issues. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this. I could hear everything they're saying loud, and I didn't get to cut it down. So I had to, it was distracting me. I did by accident and didn't get to put it back. I meant to cut it. I meant to cut it down. Okay. Okay. Because, no, but you see, when every little thing you say, I'm hearing it very loud. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. I think so. It's low enough. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Welcome back. We're speaking with Dr. Vic Nair, Dr. Rochelle Newbold, and Melissa Ingram. We're speaking about the IWECO project that is going to help transform Eastern Grand Bahama. Now, Ms. Ingram, can you talk about what your role is and how that's coming on?
So I am the National Project Coordinator for the IWECO project, and it's coming on pretty well. I guess to tackle some of the community questions that were raised initially, we did, as Director Newbold had said, this project was initially developed in 2014. So when we first started this project, most recently in 2020, we did have a pre-launch meeting on the ground in Grand Bahama right before COVID started, to engage the residents on the ground, the local residents, to get their input on the project, if it's still relevant and if we should still continue on course. And it's been going pretty well so far. We've engaged our consultants, Dr. Nair included, as well as a few others. And we have been planning different workshops and opportunities for the residents to be engaged, including virtual and in-person opportunities. We will be training as it relates to the biodiversity inventory, being engaged in species identification, as well as data collection to support that. The watershed management plan is something that residents can be engaged with and assist with by giving input and opinions to through the survey, as well as with the ecotourism survey as well. And then, of course, the in-person aspect to it down the line, once we're on the ground doing the field work, just having that relationship where persons can join in and be engaged during project implementation.
Now, what are
I
the...
just want to add to that.
Go ahead.
I just want to add to that the fact that, and to make sure that we can gain the most success and to be very efficient on that, we are actually opening an office in Grand Bahama, such that individuals will have a direct person of contact. They don't have to worry about trying to reach somebody in New Providence who will be assisting us to ensure that we have a smooth and as efficient an implementation of this project as well. So that is coming soon, and I want people just to keep their eyes out for that.
Great. Now, we talk about the financial projections. What are the estimates, initial estimates about what kind of financial injection this could bring to Grand Bahama?
Dr. Nair, do you want to take that one?
Okay, so in terms of, I think I can talk in terms of tourism because at the end of the day, what is key in this project as well in helping the communities, making sure that you have a good product that is going to attract the number of tourists that is going to actually come to Grand Bahama and go to INGRAHAM. As you have mentioned at the beginning, it is a long travel for those people who want to experience real ecotourism. So that is why when I first started, I mentioned that there are different types of visitors that you are going to be targeting on: the hardcore ecotourists and those who just want to have some very basic ecotourist experience. For those who are on hardcore, they will go all the way, they will stay many days, they will experience what they want to experience. So the development of the product and services in East Grand Bahama is key. It's not just the tourism product, but also all the support system, the road system, the transportation system, your other infrastructure, your hotels and Airbnb and motels and restaurants. All those have to play their part. So there is a lot of potential for it to bring economic development for the community over there. It's not just for the tourists, not just for international tourists, but also domestic tourists. I think our experience during COVID-19 have basically shown that you cannot be over-reliant on just international tourists. So the domestic tourist is key, and you will be surprised that a lot of local tourists, domestic tourists, who wants to experience ecotourism. So they have experience, of course, when you talk about the Bahamas, it's always seemed to be very much focused on sand, sea, and sun. But we tend to forget about the cultural heritage. We tend to forget about this ecotourism. And as I said as well, when you talk about ecotourism, you're also talking about community. So you can actually incorporate community-based tourism, which is another area that I've been doing a lot of work lately. And I feel community-based tourism, working close with ecotourism, is going to be a win-win in terms of economic development. It is going to bring a lot of potential because it is going to cut across the youth, it's going to cut across the senior citizens, it's going to cut across the women. Because one of the challenging part that we have seen in the Bahamas is a lot of migration of youth from family islands and trying to come to Nassau. But if you can provide the opportunity within the family islands, like even in East Grand Bahama, and there's a lot of potential for youth to be trained, they're going to remain there and they're going to help. Because most destination that you see, especially ecotourism and community-based tourism, these destinations are run by senior citizens, and the youths are leaving. They want to go to the city. So what we're trying to do now is help to build the product, help to build the services that we think that the youth is going to contribute even more moving forward. So this is something really great that what's happening in East Grand Bahama.
Now, we only have 2 minutes left before in this program, actually. And I want to ask you this one question, because it was announced last week by our ambassador to the European Union, Maria O'Brien, that we could get access to some portion of $100 million from the Climate Services and Related Applications Program, CLIMSA initiative. Now, of course, we don't know how much we will get and where we could get, but you always need funding, right, Dr. Newbold? And where would you like to see the next step of environmental development? If we got some of that funding, where would you like to see it go?
Well, yes, funding is the quintessential gas that drives the economy, right? There has to be some injection in funds. And when you look at where is it needed in the Bahamas, it truly is needed in terms of how we sustainably develop our physical environment. And that has a plethora of feet that hold up that table, because it also means that the public has to be educated and they have to be made aware of how important it is to live in harmony with your environment. As Dr. Nair said, people come here because the sun, sand, and the sea. But if we continuously abuse the environment that we have, we may find ourselves in a situation like Haiti and its deforestation. If you look at a map of Hispaniola, you can see a clear demarcation between where Haiti is and where the Dominican Republic is because of the loss of vegetation. And if Bahamians do not get a sense of an understanding of why it is so important, we grew up with certain things, but we seem to forget in our rush to make that dollar, that the environment is something that truly has to be catered to, managed, and used properly. I wanted to add on to what Dr. Nair has said about the economic injection that is coming to Eastern Bahama. The fact that the Ministry of Works, under a loan that the government would have achieved with the IDB and the Integrated Coastal Zone Management Unit, they have a vast infrastructural project that is going to be going on in Eastern Grand Bahama. And so we're working in tandem with that ministry, as well as our partners in Grand Bahama, to ensure that when this project rolls out, that it's rolled out in a very comprehensive and holistic way.
Well, it sounds like a lot's coming on, and we're very happy. I'm sorry to stop you there, but we've run out of time. And we will be following the IWECO project. And of course, feel free to come back on to discuss more about it. Dr. Vic Nair, Dr. Rochelle Newbold, and Melissa Ingram, thanks for being on the Reid Factor.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you for
much.
having
Thank
us.
you.
And we'll see you
Thank
all
you.
next time.